Now pretend we're hearing the scratch of the needle across a record, or hitting the brakes, screech the tire. I'm going to completely shift gears here, and we're going to move to a different model. Most of you have probably heard the phrase the hero's journey. You know, like in high school English, and we read the Iliad and the Odyssey, you know, the mythology, the heroes' stories in the mythology, or fairy tales. Once upon a time, there was a king, and something happens, and a hero ends up going on a journey. The hero's journey is this identified motif through stories, whether it's fairy tales or mythology, folk tales. A note on storytelling. When people make up a story, it's a psychological process is happening. A story is a collection of symbols, and when I make up a story, I'm using things that I experience around me to share and explain my experience in life. And it's not a coincidence that when they started studying stories from different time periods, different parts of the world, they would see this most common motif found throughout stories throughout time that they identify as the hero's journey. And bottom line is, when we look at this this is another way of studying psychological development, because again, making up a story is my way of explaining my experience. And so this hero's journey is a pretty profound, very common, almost, sort of, again, a fundamental roadmap of human psychological development. And we can use this. Again, this is another cyclical process, just like the medicine wheel. This one happens to have 3 stages, so a little different. The medicine wheel's got 4 stages, but there's 3 stages. Again, cyclical process. And so those 3 stages are, first of all, the first stage is separation. Hero stories often start off in a special place. Once upon a time, there was a king, or there was a queen, or once upon a time there was a kingdom, some higher place, and think about Star Wars. That's a hero's journey. That was George Lucas's way of he wanted to do science fiction version of the hero's journey. Once upon a time in a faraway galaxy, we're going into a different place, this higher special place. Once upon a time there was a king, and something happens. They call that the call to adventure. And the whole story is set up in the first paragraph. There was a king, and then something happened, and a hero ended up having to leave the kingdom to go on a journey to face some sort of challenge. So the first stage is the hero leaves the kingdom, or they call it separation. And then the second stage is the hero goes through some sort of challenge, and it's usually a death-defying, a matter of life and death challenge. And if he's successful, he returns, comes back to the kingdom, and usually he has something good with him, or he's accomplished something that's good for all the people. But the return is he is reunited with the king or the queen. I don't want to be sexist here. There's a lot of he stuff, but this is a gender neutral topic that we're talking about. Although there's masculine and feminine in stories too. That's again a different topic as well. But the point is, something happens. The hero leaves the kingdom, separates from the king, goes through a challenge, comes back, and is reunited with the king. So to give you an example, I have a fairy tale that I work with. And it starts off that once upon a time there was a king, and the king had 3 daughters, and he told them, don't eat the apples off the apple tree or you'll disappear under the ground. That's the whole story. We know what's going to happen, don't we? They're going to eat the apples, they're going to disappear, and a hero's going to have to go find them. So interpretation could suggest the princesses represent innocence. And let's see, can we think of another story where eating apples results in the loss of innocence? Once upon a time, there was a king. This is sort of the Garden of Eden story also, right? In the beginning, there was God, and God was created in the image, or man was created in the image of God in the garden. We were connected to spirit. We were in the castle. We were in the kingdom. But then something happens, ironically, apples. And as a result of eating the apples, they lost their innocence and they had to leave the garden. They were separated from God in the biblical story there. Separated from the higher power. Separated, the hero had to leave, separate the king. And so we know that the hero is going to go on a journey to recover the lost innocence. And in that story, he ends up going down to the bottom of a well to find the princesses, and down there he ends up having to slay dragons. And so this is real simple. The hero's journey is, I have to go deep within myself to recover my lost innocence. I got to go down within myself and face my dragons. Human experience, right? And then if successful, comes back reunited with the king. Lots of times the hero becomes king himself. Something good happens, an elevation. That's usually what we're trying to achieve through some sort of initiation rite, correct? We initiate children to move out of childhood and into adulthood. It's a step up. So we've got the medicine wheel and we've got the hero's journey, two different models, both cyclical, that we can use as sort of roadmaps for, here's a heavy-duty term I'm getting ready to fling at you, for a roadmap for psycho-spiritual development.